I'm Doug Grego. Thank you, Caro, and thank you, NETCo Dems, for having me. I just was asked to speak for a few minutes on our plans as a county party. I was elected on June 21st as Travis County Democratic Party chair, and it is a term that ends in 2026 after the primaries. So I'm filling out an unexpired term. Pooja Sethi stepped down, running for state rep, and I plan to run again for the full 2-year term. I came here, I think, last month or 2 months ago when you had candidates, and most of you know about me. I had 2 decades as a grassroots community organizer, was the director of Central Texas Interfaith, a 5-county organization that did grassroots organizing, chief of staff to Gina Hinojosa, and worked in the LGBT movement as well. And I said, I was running for party chair because Republicans are attacking our country, destroying our country, our economy, our civil rights, our democratic institutions. Okay, and we've seen that play out over the past 2 years, and especially this year. There's been in the last 3 weeks, especially challenging events, 1 natural and 2 political. The floods in Central Texas, the tragic loss of life, recovery is still happening, and I want to commend everybody for their efforts in donating, volunteering, and getting involved in those efforts. We put tremendous pressure on families across the region. Number 2, the passage of the Trump awful bill, or whatever you want to call it, cuts to Medicaid, cuts to food stamps, cuts to green energy and renewable energy subsidies. And number 3, the special session, which, as we know, is a power grab because, there's going to be a wave in 2026. If we organize, we can maximize that wave. But Trump is trying to make himself wave-proof and keep the House by grabbing 4 or 5 seats. And make no mistake about it, it's not just Houston, it's not just Dallas. If they change seats there, it's going to impact our congressional seats in Central Texas. Could even be that we lose one unless we fight this. A Travis County seat. So those are the 3 things that I think especially have folks on edge, and it means we're going to have to build power. And I just want to say 3 things. Number 1, we need to continue with the rallies, marches, town halls, show a resistance, show that we're not backing down, energize our elected officials, energize our grassroots. I was asked to mention 1 event that's happening next Friday. Powered by People, Beto O'Rourke's group is doing a rally at the Delco Center at 6:30 next Friday evening. There's going to be bands. There's going to be, it's going to be a celebratory, but it's also going to be a place where we lay out what our fight is ahead. So that's 6:30. Caro, I just texted that to you, 6:30 to 8:30 at the Delco Center, so you could share it out with folks.
Do we have to sign up, or can we show up?
Yeah, there's a mobilize link. I think they're asking you to do it, mobilize, but I think if you get there, you could probably, do it on the spot. It's a big, it's a big facility.
And who's hosting that?
That's Beto O'Rourke's group, the Powered by People, the voter registration group. He's chairing it, and these are 3. Public officials that are thinking about running for a statewide office, and I think this is their effort to kind of work collaboratively as opposed to competitively as they go through that decision-making process. Yep.
To follow up, that's my precinct, and there's a lot of people in there that may not have access to digital invitations. So if they show up, are they okay?
Well, we're helping them. We're working with the organization. They're organizing it, but I could ask that question and just say, be prepared. Folks may come not have registered, and make sure we account for that. That's a good point. So number 2, we've got the special session, and we're learning more about how it's going to play out. And I want to say something that just got organized in the last day. And again, I'm going to send Caro the information. This is an email you probably got if you were a precinct chair this morning or an elected official. Our 2 Congress members, Lloyd Doggett and Greg Casar, are going to be doing this is a specially called Zoom meeting for party leaders, grassroots leaders, folks like yourselves, tomorrow at noon. And I know it's short notice, but this has been a fast developing issue, the redistricting issue. And we're also going to have State Rep Gina Hinojosa and Donna Howard. We're learning a few things. Number one, there are no maps yet, but the more and more we hear it, Austin is going to be affected, any way you shake it. If you take, Democratic votes, if you take votes from Sylvia Garcia's district in Houston, you may have to give Chip Roy South Austin again. And those are the trade-offs they're looking at. So we got to be ready to fight. So tomorrow at noon, we're going to do less than an hour Zoom briefing. Our 2 Congress members, 2 state reps are going to give us a briefing on what to expect in the special session and the impact on these maps. So we sent that out this morning to precinct chairs, club presidents, our electeds, but I think anyone here, if there's a way to distribute that, we're just not making it a big town hall. It's going to be for kind of party activists and party leaders. So Carol, if you can share that with folks here, or the folks that kind of leaders in this group. But what we're hearing is that they're going to have 2 hearings this week, one on flooding on Wednesday here in Austin, one on redistricting here in Austin. Next week, one in Kerrville on flooding, and another one in Houston on redistricting. Then they're going to release the maps. So we have time to, we've got to start organizing now, but the initial rumor was that everything was going to be passed this week, and that doesn't look like it's going to be the case. The last thing I'm going to say is the real fight, in addition to these immediate fights, is 2026. And I want to say, we've got our work cut out for us. And when I said that if I were elected, we would really double down on our year-round organizing. Now, look, we are the blueberry in the middle of the cherry pie, or whatever the analogy is, but our turnout mirrored the national trends last year. Our turnout in Travis County went down. Democratic turnout went down. Donald Trump's turnout went up by 9,000 votes. So the fight isn't out there. The fight isn't in other parts of the state. The fight is in our neighborhoods. To talk to folks this year, register them to vote, and get them out to vote. I'm going to close by saying we have 289 precincts in Travis County. We have 287, 189 precinct chairs. So about a third of our precincts don't have chairs. Okay? So we need you to, in this club, there are 3 super precincts, right? Blue Boulevard, Windsor Park, and East Travis County. That's 45 precincts. You have a lot of potential power there. That's over 15% of the precincts in this club alone for Central Texas. So we need to fill precinct chairs, especially in the eastern part of the county, East Travis. There's several that are open. But we need everybody to connect to their precinct chair and become part of a precinct team. Because I would like, half of our precincts that do have chairs still don't have organizing teams. And that's what we want to focus on this year. And I'll end with kind of our reach goal. We have a county convention in March, a couple weeks after the primary. I would like to set a goal that we get to north of 250, 260 precinct chairs, up from 189 now, and that each of those precinct chairs bring about 10 people that are part of a precinct organizing team. That would be 2,500 grassroots leaders ready to move into our coordinated campaign and get out the vote for the fall. We have 2,500 volunteer leaders in precincts and on teams. Okay, we're gonna exceed the wave. If we don't, then we got our work cut out for us. So I ask you to connect with your precinct chair. We're gonna have a map on our website within a week, but also ask Caro and others. Number 2, we ask that you get involved in the the rallies, the marches, the activities in the party to stay plugged in there. And we want to expand our year-round organizing. So I ask you to consider becoming a monthly donor if you're not to the party. That's how we fund our year-round organizing work. So I'm going to end there, and I probably exceeded my time, but hopefully I met expectations.
So much information. I'd like to move on to the main program with Chito Vela from District 4 on the city's budget.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be back at NETCo Dems. Always a pleasure. Got to extend also my thanks very much to Tim and for the good work. I remember being at the club after Donald Trump's election in 2016 when there there might have been 100 people here that, the Saturday, the first meeting after his election. And again, things go up and things go down, but this is a great turnout, and it's great to see a good, strong club that is continuing to be active and engaged. I'm Chito Vela. I'm the city council member for District 4. We're actually just outside of District 4. It's on Cameron. The line is on Cameron. We're actually in District 1 right now. But basically everything, Windsor Park, St. John, Heritage, the Naka neighborhood, North Loop, Lamar-Rumburg area, that's all of District 4. District 4 is a heavily Latino district, probably about 65-70% Latino, heavily immigrant district, and a very working class district. I think of all the council district, it's the lowest income council district, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to represent the district these last few years, and thank the voters of the district for sending me back. I'm just starting my second term, and I'll be termed out in January of 29, but looking forward to these next few years. Just real quickly, I do want to mention, since the gentleman mentioned affordable housing, that Austin has built more affordable housing than any other city in the country, than LA, than New York, than any city in Texas. And let me mention that just up here off of Coronado Hills, there's a big apartment complex going up right across from Nelson Field. That is 100% affordable complex at different levels, some at 80, some at 60, some at 40. That's going up with housing bond money that the voters of the city of Austin approved. If you go down to Rainley, there's this big building called Windsor Towers right next to that embassy, right before the embassy, just south of it. That's 100% affordable housing, about 300 units. And there's one that I think it opened up on Clayton, that right kind of behind the Target there. It's a big, large building that also just went up. That's also 100% affordable housing. So, again, just in this area, that's about 1,000 affordable housing units that are going up with really good bus access. And again, that's credit to not just my council, the ones that I served on, but also councils of the past that have approved housing bond money, and we have built a lot of affordable housing. And I want to say that rents in Austin are down about 20% right now. So I'm glad to see us turning the corner on the sky-high rent increases that we've been seeing over the last few years. And again, just to the point of the missing middle housing, we've also allowed a lot of duplexes and triplexes and fourplexes, because those are the most affordable units. Is a smaller kind of, I hate to use the phrase, but we call them starter homes. They're kind of a smaller, simple building with not a lot of amenities that your kind of family can afford. So I just wanted to get the facts out there, and the facts are that this council has been extremely supportive of affordable housing and will continue to be extremely supportive of affordable housing. Today, there's two more up here in case anybody else wants them. This is a presentation that I'm here to talk about the budget. I know the budget can be boring, but I'm a policy guy, and I want to, there's one right here if you want one. I just want to go over it briefly and answer any questions. I'll just kind of go through what I'm thinking. I'll just go through the budget, answer any questions that folks have, or I'll point out some of the highlights and stuff, and then I can go ahead and kind of open it up, and we can answer any questions that folks have, whether on the budget or otherwise. Honestly, I'm here, again, just to talk to folks about what's going on. So. One thing, let me start off with one thing that the city manager, our current city manager, has done, and it's a big change, is that he's budgeting 2 years kind of in a row now. One is our proposed budget for this coming year, 2026, and the other one is going to be he calls it a planned budget for 2027. I gotta say, I really like that approach. I think it gives people a little visibility, and it kind of gets us thinking in a 2-year cycle instead of just kind of in the immediate next year. I think that's been it's a new change. It's something that we're all kind of getting used to, myself and staff and whatnot. But I think that's a really good change. So as you see the numbers throughout this document, it'll usually refer to both a kind of a 26 number and then a planned 27 number. So, and just to start, I'm gonna have to put on my glasses for this. I want to start at, I think it's page 5. It says all city funds, 6.3 billion at the top. FY26, all city funds, 6.3 billion. And this gives you just kind of the full city budget is $6.3 billion. And I know that's an eye-popping number. But here in Austin, we own our own electric utility. We own our water utility. And we own our airport. And those are all huge enterprises that generate a ton of money, but the money that they generate, it largely stays in that area. Like, you know, the airport money goes back into the airport to pay the airport employees, to maintain the airport infrastructure and whatnot. Same thing with Austin Water and Austin Energy. However, and as you'll see a little bit later, they do transfer a portion of their, air quotes, profits to the city for use for, you know, our parks, our public safety, whatever the council decides to use that money for. But again, just to give you a big sense, again, the Austin Energy is a big dog there. It's got about a $2 billion budget. It's 30% of the entire budget. And I just wanted to point out too, sometimes people make comparisons between Austin and like Houston or Austin and Dallas, and they're like, Austin has a bigger budget than Houston. It's because we own our own electric utility. You know, I mean, and that's not really, Houston doesn't, and so it's not really an apples to apples comparison. So just be careful with some of those. The number that, when we talk about the city budget, it's in that bluest little, you know, almost a quarter of the pie there, general fund operations. The general fund is police, it's fire, it's EMS, it is libraries, it's parks. Those are the kind of the core services of what we kind of see and deal with every day. That's going to be about a $1.6 billion or so operation. And I'll just flip over to, let me go over to the general fund so we can just start talking about the general fund. That's going to be on page, let me get my glasses again. Page 8. This, on page 8, it says fiscal year 26 general fund, $1.5 billion. So that is a really good chart of where we are in terms of what your property taxes, what your sales taxes go for throughout the year. And again, if you just look at it, and the vast majority, let me tell you a couple of things. You could look at virtually every city in the country and the pie chart looks almost exactly the same. In virtually every city, about 2/3 of the money goes to public safety. And then that's typically fire department, police department, and EMS. We're at about that level here. And again, just to look at it, you know, police is the single biggest expense, 36% of the budget. Fire is another real big chunk of the pie at 17%. EMS is there at 10%. And then, you know, you really start to parks and recreation, 9%. And then, you know, you really start to see a smaller expenditures for all of the other departments. So, you know, and the struggle that Austin has had, and that honestly virtually every city in the country has had, is trying to control public safety expenses so that we have more money for parks, for animal services, for libraries, for all the other kind of things that people enjoy, and we're working on that. And I'll talk about that a little bit more right now, but I just wanted to kind of point out that, again, in virtually every city that you look at, we're going to be about 2/3 or so of the money is going to go to public safety. If you flip over to page 9, I think this is a real neat little chart right here where it just talks about, what are the cost drivers, right? The wage increases, the plan this year is to give our city employees, our civilian employees, a 4% wage increase in fiscal year 2026. We have given, every year that I've been on council, we've given our city employees a 4% wage increase. And I think that was both needed and well-deserved. And what we've seen with that too, when I got on council in 2022, our vacancy rate citywide was, I want to say, was about 17% or 18%. And there were multiple reasons for that. The pandemic was one, but one of the major reasons was that city employee wages had not kept up with the private sector, and we were losing a lot of people, and we were having trouble filling positions. The one that was really stood out was our lifeguards. We were paying lifeguards, God, I can't remember. I think it was $16 an hour or $17 an hour. And we would, summer would start and we could only open like 2/3 of the swimming pools because we didn't have enough lifeguards. We raised the lifeguard minimum wage, all city employees' minimum wages, we raised them to $20. And that next summer, we had 100% of the pools ready to go on day one. And so that was that's a real small example of what wages can do in terms of actually filling positions and getting people to actually provide the services that we need. Our vacancy rate is today, oh God, I didn't check the number, but we're, I think, down to about 9%, 8% vacancy rate in the city. And a big reason for that is because we have been raising wages and we have been able to attract more people into those positions. We're continuing to raise the city's minimum wage. It's going from $21.63 an hour to $22.05 an hour. The plan is to take it to $22.05 an hour for this coming year. And for those of you, I got two young kids, a 21-year-old and 18-year-old. It's not difficult to get a $20 an hour job in Austin. I mean, even your kind of low-skill temporary jobs are going to be paying $18. I'll give you an example too. For my campaign, when I'm hiring block walkers and stuff, I could hire somebody probably for $17, $18 an hour. They're not going to come back after more, a week, 10 days. They're going to get another job and they're gone. We paid our block walkers, I think we're paying them $26 an hour. And the reason is because we want them to stick around for the whole campaign. I don't want to pay somebody $18 an hour and then have them bolt on me when someone else offers them a better job. And again, they're going to do that, and they should do that. I would do the same thing. So we want, again, stability. We want consistency. There's a lot of costs that the city incurs when we have high turnover. We want to get people in those positions, get them trained up, and then get them working and then providing those, quality city services that the people of Austin deserve. Health insurance also, that's another one that I'm very proud of, that we have not raised our employees' health insurance costs for the 4 years that I have been on council. We're going to continue this year too. We're absorbing the increases that we're seeing in healthcare costs for our employees. And this is one where I think it's very helpful because the city manager in that 27 plan, he's saying that, but next year we're going to have to get some contribution from the employees toward those increased health costs. We're going to talk about that next year, but again, I appreciate the honesty, the clarity, the discussion, the planning that goes into that. And then there's, again, city retirement contributions. We have pensions. Our employees get pensions, and we've got to make sure those pension funds are nice and financially sound and healthy. That's actually a huge part of our bond rating, is how good are you doing with your pension funds? Are your pension funds in good shape? And so that's going to be a big chunk. We're going to be yes, sir.
Yeah, the market studies on this page goes from 0.9 million to 5 million.
Yep.
Let's see. increase? And what is market studies and
Yeah, that's a very good question, and actually, that's a question that I asked in the budget. There are certain positions that we are really struggling to fill. And that is where we have marketing studies where, for example, like HVAC, engineers, computer technology positions, those are really high demand, high pay positions, and we're struggling to keep those positions filled. So this year, we're doing basically a market study to say, for these really tricky to fill positions, what should a competitive salary be for the city? And then that plan is going to be, they're already kind of planning some, budgeting some cost increases for those really hard to fill positions. Yes, ma'am.
So does that stay that way then? You're going to continue to put that much money over and over every year?
No, that would be the study would say, hey, we need to go from, again, I'm just going to, from 70,000 to 80,000 for this, starting engineer or something like that. And so it would be a one-time increase to get them to what our market study would say is a competitive salary for the area. And then they would get the standard cost of living adjustment. Like I said, this year it's going to be 4%. That, after we set the wage, then we just will increase it based on our yearly cost of living adjustment.
Next year, the budget wouldn't show that much of an increase or continue that increase.
That's what I would expect to see, yeah. This would be a one-time adjustment to get those positions up to a more competitive wage, and then we would kind of put those on cruise control and just give them their kind of, their COLA adjustments. And yes, ma'am.
The IT management is cut in half. What's going on with that? I don't understand.
Hold on, where are you here? On the next page? Yeah. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and. No, you're good. That's all right. I'm glad people getting ahead of me. Okay, we're moving on from page 9, and actually, let me go through page 10 right quick. But I will absolutely talk about that. And interestingly, that's another. It's circled on there. That's my little scribble because I had that same question. And so, just to go through it right quick, EMS wages are increasing per the contract. Austin Police, the same thing. Wages are increasing per the contract that we have with them. And again, there you see also on the police a $3.7 million increase for the police retirement system. Fire is the same thing. We just had a big agreement with our firefighters their pension fund was a little bit underwater, like not where we wanted it to be, not where we needed it to be. And there was some tough negotiations, and the legislature passed a bill making adjustments to the firefighters' pension system, where the firefighters are going to have to pay more into the system, and the city is also going to have to pay more into the system, but the system is going to be more on better, more solid financial footing. Yes, ma'am, in the back there.
If I'm not mistaken, there was an increase in the previous budget for Austin Police, correct?
Yes.
And that was going towards their wages, correct?
Yes.
So what is the rationale of the increase over these next 2 years for Austin Police? Has the number of police officers gone up? And I know, I think that's always a question, because based on state law, we can never decrease the police budget. So I think, and a lot of people, at least in my neighborhood, I live in P1, and the concerns is once that's a budget that has to be very thought about, because once you do it, you cannot go back on it. So I want to know what's the understanding of the rationale of wanting to increase the police budget when it's like the previous one, we increased it by a huge amount, and now we're about to do that again.
Yeah. So that's a very good question, a question that's at the top of mind for a lot of folks. So we have what we call our authorized police number. In other words, we're budgeted to have, I don't know the exact number, but it's about 1,820, 1,840 police officers in the city of Austin. We never hit that number, and that number has been the same for many, many years. We never hit that number. I think we hit like 1750 in the 2019, kind of 2020 time frame, right before the pandemic. We were up to about 1,750 police officers. After the George Floyd protests, and I think for various reasons, I don't think it's just that, but we started to lose a lot of police officers mostly to retirement. And right now, today, we have, because I asked this question at the budget, we have 1,420 police officers on staff in the city of Austin. So the big question is, how many do we need? And that's an open question. I don't think there's a, like the police, they tried to, if y'all remember, they had a ballot measure saying that we need 2 officers per 1,000 people. And the people of Austin voted that down very, and they were going to pin us to 2 officers. They'd say we could never go below. That would put us at a force of about 2,000 officers. And it actually would have been higher because of some technical things that they kind of put into that proposal too. The voters of Austin struck that down very, very strongly. Right now, we're at 1.4. Basically, we've got 1,400 officers. We've got about 1 million people in the city of Austin. So we have about 1.4 officers per 1,000 people in the city of Austin, which is probably on the lower end for most major metropolitan areas. And again, let me just, and I'll take some questions right now, but let me just. So 1420 includes everybody. That includes the chief, that includes the assistant chiefs, that includes the commanders, the lieutenants, the sergeants, the detectives. That's not patrol officers. So we probably shave about like 200 or so off of that they're doing kind of desk work, they're doing supervisor work, they're not actually patrol officers. So we're down to about, let's say, 1,200 officers. Then you have a certain number who they're on vacation, they are on workers' comp, they are on sick leave or whatever the case may be. So on a day-to-day basis, we have about 1,000, maybe 950 or so officers that are available to be patrol officers in the city of Austin. There's 3 shifts, 8-hour shift for the police officers. So that's going to be about 300-ish per shift, and then we have kind of our minimum sector staffing for every part of town has to. They divide it into different sectors, and every part of town has to have kind of so many police officers assigned to that a portion of town. Right now, we are struggling to meet those minimum staffing levels that, let's say we need 10 officers per shift in this sector. Frequently we'll have like 9 or 8. Frequently they'll be understaffed. And that's been a problem. And what has happened is that police overtime is super high. And overtime, is pay 1.5. So all things considered, we want to get overtime down, both because it's very expensive for us to constantly pay overtime to police officers, and we want to get overtime down because our officers are burning out also. People don't mind working overtime. They mind doing it week after week after week after week after week. They do, and so recently this year, the chief, we've asked our public safety. Similar issues are happening in EMS and fire, but so this year the chief is reorganizing the patrol staffing, and we're pulling a lot of officers that we used to have in, let's say there was a patrol officer that was actually in victim services, or there was a patrol officer that was assigned to this other special unit. We're pulling all those officers back into patrol and putting them on the street, and that plan, per the budget, should save about $9 million in police costs this year. Hold on a second. So the goal of the increase was to stop the loss of our police officers. Also, we had been out of contract with them, and they hadn't gotten a raise in a few years because we couldn't agree on a contract. So there was also some kind of makeup increase for years that they didn't get a raise. They hadn't gotten a raise in about 2 years before we signed the contract, and so there was kind of like, well, you got to make it up because we didn't get a raise like in the last like 20 months or something like that. And I would say one more thing on that, and happy to discuss more. When I think about where our police officers should be, what I want in a police department is I want well-paid, highly trained, highly qualified police officers. I'll take less of those than a larger pool of less qualified, less trained police officers. One of the things, and this is just conversation, but should we require, for example, an associate's degree for our officers? We don't do that right now. We give them a bonus for having an associate's or a bachelor's or a master's. Should we require that? That's an open question. And then finally, right now the minimum, if you're a first-year police officer, you came out of the academy, you came out of probation, and you're a first-year police officer, you're making $70,000 a year. That's that base pay for a first-year police officer. A 10-year veteran under our current contract, 10-year veteran police officer makes $100,000 a year. Houston just increased their police contract. Their first-year officer makes $78,000 a year. I didn't get to look at their 10-year. They didn't have the chart as easy to read as Austin one. But this is it's not just an Austin problem. Like DPS is struggling to get officers. Houston, Dallas, basically Bastrop is struggling to get officers. Less people want to be police officers today than have in the past, and you're seeing that our recruiting classes are smaller. The number of candidates. So I want to control public safety dollars. I want to control spending. I want an officer to be there to respond when there is an emergency call. So, that's the balance that we're trying to strike in terms of, how much do we pay our police officers? How many do we need? That's a lot of what, and I know you had a question or another comment, ma'am.
No, what I was saying, that more so sounds like a recruitment issue, because before Houston updated what you just shared, Austin was one of the highest cities paying. But we are too, also, our population is not as big as Houston. We're not facing the same major issues as Houston is. So my thing, it sounds more of a recruitment issue versus one, because if the officers are already having that amount of money and we can't even recruit them, do we then throw in money at a problem where it's like, okay, we'll put in more money to essentially probably get more people to come, but people don't want to be police officers. That's what I'm saying. So it's always, that budget item to me and to others is something that, like I said, once you do it, you cannot go back.
Yeah.
So we can still increase it and still have 1,300 police officers.
Yeah.
And then what does that look like?
Yeah, I agree on the recruiting issue, that we have struggled to recruit police officers. Again, it's not just Austin, and I think one of the key problems with that was our training academy. We had a lot of problems within our training academy over the last, I'd say, like 5 years or so. The chief has, I think, done a very good job. The Commander Lee Davis is now the commander over training for the Austin Police. Lee grew up in the Austin area, really good, gets it. He gets it. He has been over the training academy for about 6 months. We've got a new curriculum at the training academy that we're trying to switch from the I think the best way that I've heard it described is from the warrior mentality for a police officer. You're not a soldier, you're a police officer, and you shouldn't, have the mentality of a soldier kind of in combating the enemy, to the guardian mentality for a police officer, where, you got to watch out for people. There's some caring involved. It's not just kind of death and destruction that you're bringing. We're working through that. But I think the training academy, we've got to get it right at our training academy. If you don't have a good training academy with a good curriculum, you're not going to have a good police department. And that has been a big emphasis of the Austin for years. We've had huge fights over the training academy. And to be frank, the folks at the training academy were really stubborn about how they wanted to teach policing. And it's one of those things where, and we've had these fights with the police where Austin police are going to police how the city council wants them to police and how the people of Austin want them to police, not how they think they should police. That's just the reality. We set the policy, we set the tone, this is how it's going to be done. If you don't like that kind of policing strategy and you don't like that kind of approach, as we saw many of them, and we saw many of them leave, retire. You know, and that's it. We did lose a lot of officers. I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, there were folks that had kind of old school mentality of you know, go. You know what I mean? Like retire and go work somewhere else. We want a new crop of police officers that takes a better approach toward the community, a more kind of a softer approach, a more kind of understanding approach. Again, we got to be ready also. I mean, there's bad things that happen in the city. I mean, there was a murder up on Breaker just last night in just outside of District 4, but I saw there was a murder on Wansley. I was just talking to Kathy about it. You know, the bad stuff happens, and cops have to be ready to respond. But we also just have to understand that we have to be respectful, we have to be caring, we have to be understanding. You know, we've got to be a good, a thoughtful police force, and not just, you know, again, excuse the language, but, you know, kicking ass, right? Like, you know, I mean, that's not what we're here to do. That's not an effective policing model. We know that. But that was the way that you did policing for a long, long time. And so we're working on changing the culture. It's going to take time, but I hope we're on the, and I think we are on the right path. I got to say real quick, and I'll take one more thing. I think the new police chief is doing a great job. And I will, as an example, the protests for the No Kings rally, which I'm sure a lot of people here were at. Those protests, it was fine. Yeah, we were worried about it. There was an assassination of the you know, in Minnesota, and things were tense, and there was an arrest, and like, you know, and honestly, I mean, and I spoke at the rally, and I was talking to the organizers. Everybody was very afraid about what was going to happen at the No Kings rally. The rally went great. And afterwards, there were, again, folks from the rally went on to the street and kind of started parading and started marching, and the police let them march. Technically, they shouldn't have been in the street and shouldn't have been, you know, they didn't have a parade permit, that no one was prepared to shut down the street, but the cops made a tactical decision, led by the chief, to say that we're going to let them, as long as they're not breaking windows and as long as they're not tagging buildings and we're going to let them walk around downtown. They blocked them off from I-35. They were like, you are not getting to I-35, and you are not going to block I-35. And they were also blocked them off from the federal buildings, which is where we had seen some you know, graffiti and broken windows and all that kind of stuff like that. And they just kind of like, they went over to 6th Street, and then they walked up Colorado, and then they walked over here, and then they got tired and went home. And there were, you know, 8 arrests, 10 arrests, virtually no injuries. You know, and honestly, I was very proud of our police department, because we've seen things go very wrong. I mean, the city has paid out, we're at $20 million, $25 million in police settlements for what happened in the George Floyd protests and the aftermath and all that. So I was very proud of the way that our police department handled the No Kings rally and the protests and all that. And I really, really hope that that's an indication that, you know, the culture is changing, and that, you know, the leadership is really implementing the kind of police department that I think the city of Austin, the people of Austin want. Yes, ma'am.
On average, not the beginning police or the guy that's retiring or been there 10 or 12 years, where are we in what we paid the police department staff in relation to other cities in Texas and nationally for our population?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So Austin has traditionally had some of the highest police salaries in the state. Nationally, no, because you know, your New York and your San Franciscos and your LAs have much higher salaries. But we have always led the state in pay for police, and I think that we're still there. But I know Houston just signed a new contract with their police department. I don't know if they leapfrogged us or not overall, but I would say that the market for law enforcement is getting really competitive because there's just not as many folks that you want to work in law enforcement. And we have to, and the other way I want to deal with that is, what do we need to send police to, and what do we not need to send police to? And for example, one of the areas that I've been working on is mental health response, where a lot of times we don't need to send, you know, if someone is just walking in the middle of the street, you know, just kind of staring at them. We see that all too often in my district. That's probably not the best approach, is to send an armed police officer that, you know, the person reacts negatively. The officer's probably not as well trained to deal with that kind of situation as other people are. You know, we need to send more of a mental health professional. And we've been doing that. We've been standing up a 24/7 mental health response unit that's responding to these emergencies, but that's expensive. You know, at first there was this whole idea that, oh, well, we'll send a mental health professional and not an officer, and then we're going to save money. We're not going to save money. I mean, we have to pay that mental health professional well, and there's a shortage of mental health professionals too. And in a lot of cases, if the person is acting, you know, violently or you know, threatening people or screaming, we send both an officer and a mental health professional. And so it may be even more expensive to take that response, but the outcome is better. You know, and to me, that's very important, that we have a good outcome in that. So, but that's one where we're thinking, oh, we're going to save money by doing it this way. I mean, that may be good. We should do it that way. It doesn't mean it's going to be cheaper. We're learning. We're watching other cities that are doing this stuff. They're learning. But yeah, that's where we are. Yes, sir.
Housing question?
Yes.
I don't know if it's the time, but so I work for Judge Randall Slagle and obviously working in a JP court. Thank you for your endorsement.
Yeah.
For his re-election. Working in a JP court, housing is really important to us. And I know that the new proposed budget, so the Housing Trust Fund, which is used taxes from public lands to build housing all over the city. It's been in place for decades. It's zero.
Yeah.
Goes from $11 million to $0 in this new budget for the first time in decades. I have a feeling where you stand on that. I think we're pretty aligned on housing. But can you give some explanation about that zero out? Any?
Yes, absolutely. And let's go ahead and flip over. Well, real quick, let me answer the information and technology management question. I'm just kind of going through page by page. So that $6.4 million additional in information and technology management, and I'm on page 11, is basically just like our major software contracts are renewing, and there's additional costs. Like, for example, our Microsoft kind of Teams Office, you know, those kinds of things like that are renewing, and there's additional costs, and that's where that $6.4 million is. We've talked about it, and we're going to try to, we're paying too much for technology, and I think a lot of that is because different individual departments are buying they have their own contracts. I think right now we have 5 different contracts with Microsoft. Like each department we need to consolidate that and make sure that we're getting kind of that bulk discount as much as, and so we're hoping to control some of those technology costs, but in the short term, they're going up.
Okay, so as an IT professional for my entire life, this concerns me a lot.
Yep.
That's like hack.
Mm-hmm.
With the cybersecurity issue, I don't understand what's happening with that.
On the cybersecurity issue, or
Does that include our cybersecurity?
that does. That does include the cybersecurity. I don't know all of the details of what that figure includes, but when I asked the question about that, it was essentially that we're ending our, we'll typically have a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year contract for, some technology services, some software contract, and that they're expiring, they're being, negotiated, renegotiated, renewed, and that they've gone up, marginally, and that's where that the 6.4 million is coming from. I had it circled because that also caught my attention. Unfortunately, right now, this budget was just released on Tuesday, so that's all I know. I don't.
Preliminary,
Yeah.
2.8?
The 2.8 is future. That's planned, looking into the future. They're projecting a $6.4 million increase in IT management costs this year, and then they're planning for a much smaller increase next year.
That's frightening to me.
Yeah.
I actually speak from a position of understanding this from a long time ago, and I'm 68 years old, and we're dealing with AI now. I work with state agencies. My background is entirely state-related. That frightens me.
Yeah, and there's been, and that's an ongoing theme. I think that are looking at areas where our costs are too high. Our IT costs are too high in Austin. We're higher than other cities, and we need to get down to the average. It is, and that's something we will be digging into a little bit more. Unfortunately, right now I don't have a lot more to tell you.
I'd like to be involved in that at some point.
Would love to because I'm not an IT professional and I struggle. There's some areas that I know. That's not one of them. So I could barely. I was messing up the printer. I was struggling with the printers this morning at City Hall. And I'm sorry, what was the other question someone had asked me? Oh, yes, housing. Yes. So the Housing Trust Fund is a chunk of money that we put away for affordable housing. There's this thing called the Downtown Density Bonus, which basically when there's a skyscraper built downtown, they have to cut a big check to the Housing Trust Fund. There's also traditionally been, we've squirreled away a little money in the Housing Trust Fund over the years. The manager, and this really dovetails into something else that I wanted to talk about that's not quite on here, but the manager, we have a budget deficit this year of about $33 million. How are we going to do that? One of the things that the manager is suggesting is pulling $8 million out of the Housing Trust Fund to pay for, this would be the marshalling yard, which is a 300-bed homeless housing facility not too far from the airport, kind of at the end of like Riverside and 183, right there, Riverside and 71, I'm sorry. So he pulls about $8 million, a little bit more from the Housing Trust Fund. We're also tapping our reserves. The city has, we try to have 17% of the general fund in reserve. So we've got a big chunk of cash just kind of sitting there for that's just in case money, and for bond ratings and for financial ratings and just kind of for general operating expenses. So he's pulling $14 million from the reserves, and he's pulling $8 million from the trust fund as part of our effort to balance this budget. I think the city manager, I think he's done a really good job with his budget. Honestly, I don't support either one of those, honestly. Both the reserves and the housing, pulling money from the Housing Trust Fund. Right now, we're using the Housing Trust Fund, we're using about $3.5 million, $4 million a year to provide tenant assistance for basically emergency tenant assistance for people that are going to get evicted from their houses. That's something that I've championed, that we really fought hard for, and we want to make that a kind of a permanent, ongoing feature of Austin, that there's a chunk of money set aside for, especially for families who are getting evicted and don't have anywhere to go. So what do we do if we're not going to pull reserves? There's something in state law that recently passed. It's called a tax rate election. And basically, and again, I'm sorry if I lose folks here, but this gets real deep into the property tax weeds. We used to, property values in Austin grow every year. There's new buildings, appraisals go up and all that. We used to historically, we were capped at, I think, 8%. We could not collect more than 8% of our total property tax collections from one year to the next. We would typically, and I'm talking about for the last like 20, 25 years, take about 6%. Typically we would take about an additional 6% of the property tax values as how we paid for things on a day-to-day basis. About 5 years ago, the state said you can only take 3.5%. Yet you're capped at only taking 3.5% of that increased property tax value. And that's what we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years. Now, when inflation's like 4%, and your city is growing in population and there's more services that you need to provide, 3.5% is not going to work. We have been getting by because of the federal money. During the COVID time, the federal government pushed a lot of money down to the cities and states, and that kind of propped up the budget. Then when COVID was done, we had a sales tax explosion. I think there was just a lot of, everybody wanted to go out after COVID. And actually, let me flip over there real quick just to illustrate why I think we need a tax rate election. And let me find the page real quick. We have a sales tax revenue chart. Where are you, chart? There it is. Page 22, I'm sorry. Both of them, but 21 is like a very near term. Let's start with page 21. So page 21 is our month-to-month collections over the last 2 years. As you can see, in this last year, it starts on October 24. That's this budget year. Sales taxes have not been increasing very much. And in fact, you see April and May, there was a drop. And that's comparing April 25 to April 24. That's what that number is comparing to. So you're seeing, kind of drops in sales taxes or increases that are very small in sales taxes. If you go to the next page, page 22, that shows historically what have our sales tax collections done on any kind of from year to year basis. You see that the pre-COVID 10-year average annual growth of sales taxes was 5.9%. In other words, sales taxes have grown in Austin about 5 to 6% every year for the last 20 years or so. If you look at the last few years, in 24, 1.8%. Currently, we're down 0.5%. And so that miss, the fact that we were anticipating, the prediction was 3.5% sales tax growth, which is not crazy. Given that we're averaging about 5 to 6%, it has come in way under what we were expecting, hoping, budgeting for. And that is a big factor in our current budget deficit. So again, before, if you see that post-pandemic boom, you see that sales taxes were up 14% in 21, 21% in 22. We had this massive just rush of sales tax money that, again, we didn't have to worry about that 3.5% property tax cap because sales taxes were making up for it, and we didn't need to touch the cap. Now we need to touch the cap. And let me show you one more last chart. And I think I've probably gone on long enough here. But the last chart is going to be, I would show the 5-year forecast on page 26. So that's showing what we're predicting. And this assumption here is not saying we're adding anything. This is not adding a single employee. This is not adding, any kind of additional services. This is saying if we do exactly what we are doing in moving into the future, we're looking at large deficits coming up in 27, 28, 29. And we need to take more than that 3.5% property tax cap. And so the council has talked about this, the idea being that we are going to have this tax rate election on a 4-year cycle. And the idea being that every 4 years, we're going to kind of look at everything, see where we are, and then go to the voters and say, hey, we need this much money. We need to raise property taxes this much, and that will get us through these next 4 years. But that's what we're facing this year. Council hasn't made that decision yet. We've talked about it, and we're going to be talking about it here in these next couple of weeks. But I would say it's highly likely that we will have a tax rate election this November to raise some additional revenue. And getting back to the question about housing, if we do that tax rate election, we don't have to tap the housing trust fund. We don't have to tap the reserves, and we can leave them at 17%. Honestly, and I'm not really like a reserve guy. Like, I'm not super paranoid about the reserves, but our reserves right now are paying us 5% interest. It's a good time to have reserves because you're making money on the reserves that you're holding. In 2020, when 1%, you're getting 1%. Who cares? That's not really a meaningful amount of money. Today, I hesitate to tap those reserves just because. I mean, we could issue bonds for 5%. There's a financial strategy involved there where I really hesitate to tap the reserves. And then the other reason not only do I not want to tap the reserves, I want to boost them is because of what's going on in the world around us. Are the feds going to be there for us when there's something that happens here in Austin? We just learned that FEMA is rejecting reimbursement that the city applied for. I want to say that this is, I can't remember if it's a Winter Storm Uri or the other winter storm where all the trees fell down and shed their limbs. And I can't remember which one it was, but basically FEMA is saying, we're not going to pay you X number of dollars, and we're in that right now. So again, when I think about AISD and the brutal cuts we have to be ready to support our institutions here in Austin that are going to get hit by both state and federal tax cuts. I don't want to do that. And, I've had some discussions with AISD trustees. This was, again, a few years back. Because we give right now, City of Austin probably supplies about $5 million or so a year to AISD to help them boost. This is from a financial crisis that they had a few years back, and we pay for some parent support specialists, we pay for some after-school programs, we pay for some kind of community-oriented things like that. And when I came into office, I was having conversations with trustees saying like, hey, y'all pay for those, man. Like we need money for our police, we need money for public safety, we need money for our parks, we need money for all that kind of stuff like that. Now, I'm like, what can we do to help you? Because the state is actively trying to undermine the school districts, and the school districts are critical to the operation of the health of the city of Austin. And I'm like, you know what? We need to partner more. Like we need to, if the state is not going to support you, we're ultimately one of the few institutions in town that can come to the table and hopefully help them bear some of those costs and continue to provide quality services. So I joke about it, and I may write something about this and try to publish it, but I joke about how the return of the city-state, for those of you that know the kind of, the old Greek Athens and whatnot, like, I mean, if the feds are not going to be there, the state is like not our problem. We ultimately are going to be responsible for ourselves, and we're going to have to provide resources here for those things that we want to see. If the feds are not going to be there, if the state is not going to be there, we're the last resort. I mean, we've got to depend on ourselves. So I wish it wasn't like that. I don't want to live in that world. I want to live in a world where we're cooperating with the feds and the state to, have good quality of life for people, but we are what we are. So that's another one to try to sell the TRE beforehand. We're going to need additional revenues to continue to provide quality services in the city of Austin. And I'll one last comment, I'll open it up to questions. I went to the LBJ school. I'm an attorney, but I went to the LBJ school. I've worked in local government. The city of Austin does a really good job managing. I don't want to. Of course, there are inefficiencies. Of course, we can do better in this area or that area. But by and large, our staff is really good. And if you compare us to other cities and the quality of the services that we provide and the things that we do, the city of Austin does a pretty good job. Again, can we do better? Absolutely. And we will do better, and that's what I want to do. But I've got to, like I said, I've been on council for 3.5 years. I've had many conversations across many different staff. They do good work. They're really trying hard, and from our firefighters to EMS to our parks maintenance people to everybody. I mean, we've got a good city government, and we're going to need to boost it here in the not too distant future. All right, Carol's asking me to just do the timeline, and just so y'all know, Doug, good to see you, Doug.
There's no way we can cover all of this
Yeah,
budget
and I
today.
wasn't going to try.
And if you have questions, you need to show up to city council and voice your opinions.
Yeah, and so just on, I think it's that last page, or where are we
Second
here?
last page.
Second to last page, or even page 3 actually is also the same thing.
Oh.
That just shows the timeline that we July 15th was a presentation. There's going to be a community input and work session on the 23rd, and ultimately August 13th through 15th are the dates that we're actually going to present, amend, and vote on the budget. And if we do call for a tax rate election, a TRE, it will be in that time frame, August 13th, August 14th, August 15th, and the tax rate election would be this November of 25. So just a heads up that I may be back in October or sometime in that frame to pitch y'all on a TRE. At that time, but again, thank y'all for sticking with me through a bunch of really wonky stuff, and happy to take any questions. Seth?
$20 an hour for a lifeguard.
Yeah.
That's quite much more than I made something 67, 68. $1.05 an hour, Chief.
Yeah.
But we all try to get in 100 hours, so we can at least make a little over $100 per pay period. We got paid twice a week. The other thing I want to say is, and some of you may not be aware of it, is lifeguard training is offered by some high schools in the AISD.
Yeah.
The school that I teach at, right across the street there, does have that training so that our youngsters can get a job in, be outside, enjoy themselves, be sociable, and increase their sociability skills. And so I just wanted to mention, I don't know how many AISD schools have that type of training in their curriculum, but I know Northeast does.
Yeah, we've got a lot of 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old AISD kids guarding all over the city. I used to be a lifeguard. I made more than $1 an hour. I think I might have made $9 an hour. I can't remember now. But it's a great job, and we have. Oh man, I think this is anecdotes and conversations. I think we have more city pools than other cities that are larger than us. It's amazing the amount of city pools that we have, but again, good. I know that's expensive. They're expensive to maintain. We got to rebuild them every once in a while because pools get old. But I mean, it's a great thing for the summer. It gets so hot. I'm a big fan and supporter of pools. Yes, sir.
One other thing, could you speak briefly to the proposal whereby we in the city will be asked to pay a little bit more for park maintenance?
Yes. So one of my colleagues had a proposal to add a fee to the utility bills, basically the Austin Energy utility bills, to increase parks maintenance. Agree that we are under where we want to be on parks maintenance, and I think that's for a variety of reasons. I think the homelessness problem aggravates that, because there's a lot of folks sometimes that are there, and we got to empty the trash and clean things out and all that. I would prefer to fund the parks out of the TRE. I think that's a more property taxes are progressive, meaning that the wealthy largely pay a larger portion of property taxes than the poor. They pay more. They're not as progressive as, for example, income taxes, but property taxes are a more progressive way to fund city services than a utility bill fee. Like that's the less, that's going to fall hard on your apartment. It's not going to be a lot. It's going to be like $1, a month or something like that. But I would still prefer to leave that alone and to use the property tax money, the TRE money, and put parks maintenance. We're having conversations about it right now, but we want to put probably about $10 million, $12 million additional into parks maintenance. And the goal would be, for example, bathrooms got to get cleaned every day. Trash has to get picked up every day. Not all parks are on that schedule. Sometimes it's like every other day that they go by to pick up trash. Those are the kinds of little maintenance things that make a big difference. Also, things break at the parks. The swing set breaks. The playground breaks. Different things break. Water fountains. Water fountains are constantly out of service, and it takes. So those are the kinds of things where instead of having the water fountain out of service for 3 months, 4 months, let's get that fixed in 30 days or as quickly as we possibly can. And that's what I hear a lot from my constituents too, is that when things break, they got to get fixed, and they got to get fixed quickly. It doesn't have to be that afternoon, but it just, people get upset when they see something that's broken. And they don't see any movement on the repairs, right? I think that's where people get frustrated, and that's when they call my office and yell at me.
Are you in 800 North Breaker? Is that part of your area?
Yes, Breaker is the limit. It's yeah.
What are you doing about the cartel that's moving into that area and all the shootings? That is the worst crime area, and it's not getting any better. And that's not what you're here to talk about.
No.
But another shooting that's
I saw that last night.
doing nothing.
Yeah.
It's getting worse and not better. And this is where we live.
Yeah,
There's 4 cartel businesses there, and there's more.
That club, bar, whatever it is in that shopping center east of I-35 on Breaker right there, that's causing all the problems. So I've had APD is well aware of that spot. They were there last night for another shooting, and
The alcohol control board wanting to shut them down.
I mean,
That's the third one.
exactly. I mean, it's bad, and that parking lot turns into just like Mad Max at 3 a.m. That's, and I don't mean to. That's just outside of my district actually, but I'm well aware of it because it's close enough, and I try to keep tabs on things. I mean, the line, just because the line is there, I'm still, that affects my constituents and affects my district, and so I'm not going to ignore something that's 3 blocks outside of my district. Well aware of the situation. I will circle back with APD to talk to them again about where it is, but it's one of those things where the bar, we got to get something we can't force them to close. That's not what our role is. But I think TABC needs to come. We need to make their lives miserable because that bar is completely out of control, and there's been way too many shootings right there on just the northeast corner of Breaker and I-35 in that shopping center. Real bad spot. Completely agree, and I will follow up on that. And yes.
The gaming places too that I've noticed that are popping up. There was one up at Airport, and this is not even a district, but just is something to be aware of. There was one up at Airport. Now there's one up at MLK Airport next to Waterburger.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is the regulation behind gaming?
Yeah.
They're not gaming or gambling places,
Yeah, they have the video poker kind of stuff and all that, the video slots. Oh boy, that's another estate. I hate to always, but they operate in this gray area of the law where you're allowed to give, prizes, but they're supposed to be like, the little, these machines that Palapa has where you get like a little stuffy, a little, you know what I mean? A little kind of toy basically.
But too, like people hanging out, I know as chair of my neighborhood association, and I'm gonna reach out to our council, there has been individuals that have contacted
no, completely agree. And those oftentimes, because they don't serve alcohol, they're open at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Like, you know, they turn into real bad spots. Appreciate the heads up. I'm you know, again, like I said, I try to stay aware of what's going on in the city. I'm not aware of one in my district that is causing a lot of headaches, but I will pass that along to Natasha, and I'll mention that to APD when I talk to them next. And yes, ma'am.
I wanted to thank you very much for your comprehensive report. It was very helpful. I'd like to know if the city council in general, and I know this isn't your area, is going to finally get the courage to put on the west side of town, that is west of 35, all the stuff that dumps on the east side,
Yeah.
including amenities that should be citywide, and amenities such as housing for the homeless or housing for the indigent should be spread across the city. We get everything the west side doesn't want, the dump, the morgue, etc.
Yeah.
And I think it's the current city council, as far as I can see, has exacerbated the destruction of neighborhoods on the east side with your hell-bent density kind of thing, where you have taken nice neighborhoods, you've eliminated any kind of gradual building and said you can build a 10-story right by a bungalow. And who does that affect? It affects low-income people or working people. The west side doesn't have to worry about that, and they don't care. And
Yeah.
I'd like to see a city council that begins to step up and have the courage to make the things that the city needs citywide,
Yeah.
and not dump on the east side. 35 is hideous, and nobody cared that it divided the east from the west. When the east was mostly minority people, nobody cared. But now that predatory developers have gentrified the east side, oh my goodness, we have to make it so that the east side can get to the west side.
Yeah. I hear you. All of the changes that I've championed and that the city council has passed in terms of housing have been citywide changes. And that is not what was happening before. That, you know, the upzoning was very spot and selective, and the west side would always, you know, no, and everything that we have done has been citywide, and we're starting to see buildings go up in West Austin. We're starting, and I completely agree with that. And you know, a lot of folks, they want to live in West Austin. They should have the opportunity to live in West Austin. There should be apartments in West Austin. There should be low-income housing in West Austin. There should be, again, homeless, you know, a permanently supportive housing for the homeless in West Austin. So we've supported that. I've supported that. I will say that there's a couple of hotels that have been converted into housing for the homeless. One is off of Mopac. Another one, the Katy Lofts, just opened on like basically 40th and I-35 on the west side right there. There are multiple. We have not seen affordable housing, not homeless housing, but affordable housing in West Austin. Multiple projects have been approved now, and we should be seeing them going up soon. One of them is in Hyde Park on 38th at the old Confederate widows home right there on kind of 38th in Guadalupe. I'm trying to remember. Another one's on Medical Arts in 40th, but there, when you look at the charts about like the different council districts and where, you know, the West Side council districts have not had any affordable housing, that's starting to change. It's not, they're not built yet, but they're being zoned and approved in West Austin, and I think that's only fair, and I think that's only right.
Sure. Just to close
Tim?
out, I know you have other things to do, but in conjunction with that, I really want to commend you and the council, and just recent month, maybe a month ago, with the caps over 35, and that's going to create some real, it's not even fully developed, I know yet, That should be, create some real meaningful opportunities for neighborhood involvement in.
Agree, and just so y'all know what Tim's mentioning, you know, I-35 is going to get, the state is rebuilding I-35, and their plan is to bury it from essentially from the lake, Lady Bird Lake, all the way up to essentially Airport Boulevard. And then City Council had the question before them of, do we cap portions of I-35, and there was a long discussion, and it's going to be expensive, but we approved caps from Cesar Chavez to 7th Street, caps on 11th and 12th Street, and then a tiny little cap up on where the Hancock and HEB is, and the Fiesta Shopping Center, and the rail crossing right there. We're going to put something up there. The University of Texas is also going to cap in that kind of the Martin Luther King, or like in that area right around there. They're being actually much more ambitious than we are, because they're going to build like 15-story buildings, I think, on their caps. We're just planning for parks and whatnot. And I will say that I visited Dallas. Dallas has done this in their downtown. I saw them in Phoenix. I've seen highway caps in multiple cities across the country now, and they're great. Boston, the Big Dig, it turned out to be it was a hell of a project getting there, and a disaster of the process, and the budget was a disaster. The final product was great, and Boston has really been transformed by that. So I appreciate that. I'm excited about that. That's still years away, though. I mean, we're right now, the only thing that we've budgeted for is the foundational elements for the caps. We still got to figure out how we're going to actually build and pay for the caps, and I'm really hoping both the state and the feds step up and fund. And we lost, actually, the Trump administration pulled back a $105 million grant that we had been given for the Cesar Chavez cap. Again, we'll see where that goes, and I know our congressional reps are fighting for the city. Yes, sir. It will be the last one, and then I'll...
Is the city council aware of the toxic waste being leaked into Little Walnut Creek from the garbage disposal location on 290?
I have not heard that.
It is happening. TCEQ filed a lawsuit against them. So
The closed city dump there off of 290, that one right there?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted the city council aware of it, and a lot of people don't know that, and they have their little dogs wandering around in Little Walnut Creek.
Yeah.
And they drink toxic waste.
Little Walnut Creek is my district. That's actually just a little east of my district, but I'll give you my card right now, and please send me any info you have on that. I'll bring it to the city's attention. But again, appreciate it. And again, thank you all so much.
Thank you, Chico.
Take those copies home and feel free to peruse them on your own time.